Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Zack.
And I am your host, Tyler.
Yeah, we're really excited. We're going to be talking about Last of Us 2 today, but first,
Finally,
let's talk about this whiskey. I know we've been doing beer a lot lately. I'm definitely a whiskey guy. This is a Japanese whiskey that I recommend to people who like bourbon, because there's a lot of corn in the mash bill on this bad boy. It still has that kind of, what people like to associate with Japanese whiskey, that floral, the delicacy is always a word that gets thrown around. That means basically nothing, but it is really good though. And it is very bourbony. It lacks some of the oak characteristics that are brought on in a lot of bourbons. It's definitely not very vanilla-y. It does have that caramel there. But it's good. In terms of Japanese whiskey, it is not it's not a good representation of them overall, I'd say, but I do like it. It's overpriced, but I found a really good deal on it during the whole COVID stuff that's been going on, so I was able to find
trying to get rid of that inventory.
I don't know what was happening, because I've seen it again at the $70-$60 price tag, and it's definitely not that. But if you do find it and you like bourbon, you want to try to kind of branch out, this is what I recommend to people a lot of times. Just like with Scotch, like if I'm trying to get a bourbon drinker into Scotch, it's always Aberlour Abenade, like every time. It's gonna show off that Scotchiness, but still have a lot of the characteristics that people like out of bourbon. So yeah, it's good. I like it. Just figured I'd take it off the shelf. Hadn't brought it down for a while, so
I enjoy it quite a bit. It's pretty smooth.
Yeah,
I'm an old man. Got really terrible heartburn, so hard liquor. I usually have to cut it with some ice, and I did here, but this is particularly smooth.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit. But hey, let's talk about this game. Let's preface by saying though that neither of us finished the first one.
Yeah. Now, I finished the story. I was very invested in the characters, but I wasn't particularly engaged with the gameplay later on. I found some of the things, like everything happening in real time, upgrading your items, crafting things, healing, all of that happening in real time. That was engaging.
It's a Naughty Dog game.
A little hypocritical here, but the weapon degradation I thought worked very well. And so some of the gameplay aspects I enjoyed, but it didn't carry me through to the end of the game.
I've never gotten past the first 4 hours.
Okay.
Never. I have tried now. I tried twice on PS3, and one time on PS4, maybe one other time as well. But I know those three for sure. And it's it just never hooked me, never got me into. But watching some reviews and people talking about it, preparing for this episode, I do realize that it is a game you should push past those first handful of hours to really start getting into what makes the game special. So I might give it another chance down the line, but we're familiar enough with the story to be able to play this game. It's a pretty well-known story by now, to be honest, in the gaming community.
I typically don't watch games. Like, I understand why Let's Plays and things are so popular. I definitely understand that. It's just not really my cup of tea. I don't typically watch Let's Plays, but this is one that I was very compelled to go to see through to the end, down that avenue. I of course didn't play it all the way.
Regardless, I was very hesitant to play this game because I was afraid I would just be judging it too harshly. This is outside the normal controversy of the game. I just thought I really didn't like the first one. I've heard they didn't change a lot going into this one. I'm probably not going to like it, but I do want to play it for the cast. I do want to play it, to have a fair group of gaggle of games to play.
Gaggle of games
that I've played that are, generally considered the best of the year and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like anyone's honest game of the year discussion
should include this game.
Should include it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it's going to be very interesting talking about this from the perspective of two people who didn't play the first one. And I feel as though we're going into this extremely objectively. We weren't. Yeah. Neither of us were really wrapped up in all the crazy controversy, surrounding the press as this game came out.
Yeah, the leaks and stuff.
The leaks, and then you have like Naughty Dog, doctoring trailers, trying to hide some of the big reveals, and some people felt very manipulated by that, and we weren't particularly excited for this game. Like, neither of us were even really planning on playing it until launching this cast, really. So we got to kind of... That's not a factor in anything that we're talking about today. We're also not going to say that we're the best people to be talking about this game, since we haven't really played the first one. We're straight up just going into the...
I think I played enough of it to talk about it intelligently, and I almost finished the game, and I did finish the story. I watched gameplay through the end. For all intents and purposes, I've played the first one.
Yeah, well, regardless, I still think there are people online that you can go watch if you want a full analysis breakdown of like what the game's doing in relation to the first one and the way the gameplay bounces off the first one. We aren't going to be really talking about the first one at all.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about this game as a game. So let me start by saying that we are not going to go into spoilers right away. We will get into spoilers. We'll have the timestamps marked. You'll see a timestamp for gameplay. You'll see a timestamp for story. The whole time we're talking about gameplay, we will refrain from major spoilers.
Well, I think with the exception of one.
When we talk about story, if there's more stuff that the gameplay is involved in that, we'll talk about it then. But regardless, the duration of this little section, we won't be talking about spoilers. And then when we do go into story, we will.
Sure. Would you consider, like, by now, I feel like everyone knows this, by now, the sort of shift in focus in the middle of the game,
I wouldn't
just when we're talking about gameplay, not what happens narratively, but would that be considered a spoiler?
That's why I said major spoilers. So if you don't want to know anything about the game, you don't want to know anything about how this, as the gameplay progresses, there will be different story shifts and focuses. I'm talking about story beats themselves. We won't be talking about those.
Sure.
But, most people are aware of the central stuff that happens. If you feel like you really want to go into this totally blind, don't listen at all. But if you do want to play, if you do kind of want to get our take on it first, this whole section is going to be pretty safe. It's not going to ruin anything for you. As someone who's a big spoiler, like, no, please, no spoilers at all, what we're going to talk about is not going to bother me. So it probably won't bother you either. No promises, though. If you are one of those people who really touchy about that, just play the game first, then come listen to us. Let's jump into it, man.
Okay.
I'm pretty excited.
Let's do that. With the gameplay, I've been playing Naughty Dog games for a while, since the PlayStation 1.
Man.
We've really...
Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter. I'm a big Jak and Daxter guy.
We've really grown up with Naughty Dog. I have skipped their last two games just because I didn't own a PS4 until actually pretty recently.
And I got Uncharted 4 for my birthday when it came out, and I still haven't played it. And I hate myself for it, because Uncharted 2 is just, I think even with this, I'm not sure, it's been a while since I've played it, probably still my favorite Naughty Dog game. And, most people tend to say, like, 4 is just the pinnacle, So
I'm also looking forward to playing Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
I hear in terms of gameplay, maybe not narrative, the characters in 4 are awesome. And you're seeing the end of their story.
You got Troy Baker in it,
sure.
Man. How...
Yeah. But I hear in terms of gameplay, it's likely the best. Lost Legacy, that is. Obviously, it's likely not going to compare to 4 in terms of story and characters. But when we get around to playing it, I very much like to include that.
No, absolutely. I would consider it part of the main series.
Sure.
I wouldn't consider the Vita one part of the main series.
Yeah.
What is that called? I always forget.
Lost Abyss.
I always want to call it Golden Abyss for some
reason.
No,
that is correct. Golden Abyss. You're right.
Wait, is that really correct?
Yes, Golden Abyss.
What a silly title.
I think that's an interesting title. Especially when you're talking about, like, some, treasure hunting nonsense.
Treasure hunting nonsense is, like, my favorite kind of nonsense.
Yeah. It's as bad as it is, I love National Treasure.
Oh, me too. Honestly, though, let me preface that by saying I will watch anything with Nicolas Cage in it.
Speaking of treasure hunting, if you guys have not watched The Lost City of Z, I cannot recommend that enough. You haven't seen it, right?
I've intentionally been waiting to watch it with Oliver.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to watch it with me, you let me know. That feeling you got when you were a kid watching, like, El Dorado, or for me it was Atlantis, the Disney movie Atlantis, just that pure wonder of finding a lost civilization, treasure hunting, things like that. This is extremely grounded and allows you as an adult to earnestly feel that again because it is real.
Yeah.
It's really, really
I mean,
great.
It's been really high on my list. I've just kind of been waiting for Oliver to watch it.
Yeah. So back to Last of Us Part 2. We've been playing it for quite a while.
Actually, according to your copy here, it's Part 2.
It is Part 2. So you might notice up there it says PlayStation. What is the word there?
I don't want to flip it around.
Yeah, I don't want to flip it around either. Anyway, this is a South American copy, a Spanish copy of Last of Us 2. I don't know why Amazon shipped it to me, but that's what I have here.
Devastadoras.
Yeah, I was worried that it wasn't gonna work on my PS4, but same region. Anyway, the gameplay here, a lot of things are really fun, and fun isn't always interesting. I don't think they do too much here that is really...
There's nothing groundbreaking.
Pushing the bar, pushing the envelope at all. Nothing groundbreaking for sure. And I think they really drop the ball in a few places where they can really let some of their new ideas shine, but they don't. They rest on some really old ideas.
Yeah, our notes here say old school versus new school design.
So you were talking about this a little before the cast. Why don't you dive into that?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting how you see so much kind of what am I playing, like a PS3 adventure game right now? You have to move the garbage can to jump on it to get on top of the building or whatever.
Over and over. I mean, I say over and over. You have to do it like
6 times.
10 times or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, but it feels like a lot because you're playing a game that is so focused on presentation, so focused on immersion. Every animation, man, feels so dynamic, like it's not scripted at all. Mm-hmm. And depending on where you're standing, all that stuff, it's really incredible. So to see a garbage can puzzle in the puzzle in the middle of this is extremely disappointing, honestly. And what I kind of was talking about with Tyler before the cast started was new school versus old school. The way that I'm starting to see that divide is dynamic versus static gameplay. So in a static gameplay section, it's like, okay, you are now in this section. You can only interact with this garbage can because it is part of this puzzle. So you need to go find that garbage can, pull it over, and solve the puzzle, right? In what I would call more modern games, every garbage can in the world would be able to be interacted with, right? Every car, every item, if you can do it on one thing, you can do it everywhere. Something that I think, in my favorite game, Metal Gear Solid 5, does it incredibly. It is consistent every time. If you can do this thing, you will be able to do it everywhere, right? It's really well put together, and more games do that. It is not, okay, you solve this puzzle because this is how you do it. It's, oh, I can use garbage cans like this, and now you, the player, are developing that solution. And really good games have 3 or 4 solutions, right? Someone on YouTube mentioned, the rope mechanics in the game are really cool. Basically, you can get cables or ropes and throw them over stuff, use it as a swing, stuff like that. But they're always there is a rope here, you cannot take it anywhere else. It solves this puzzle. He was like, well, why can't I take it with me? Why can't I use it to get to some place that, only I thought to get to? Why can't I turn it into a grappling hook, And it's those kind of ideas that are stuck in the past that I think really hold the gameplay portions of this back.
And that YouTuber you're talking about, that's Nakey Jakey, by the way.
I always forget his name.
We actually disagree with about half of his assessment, but when he's talking about the gameplay, I think it's pretty spot on for sure. And the rope is a great example. I don't know, because obviously, as we just mentioned, we haven't played Uncharted 4, but they certainly introduced a grappling hook there, and I think that adds, from what I've heard of the game, adds a lot to the gameplay. Why didn't they go further with that
grappling
here?
hooks straight up are just so
it's
freeing.
It's going to be the
so
next
cool.
It's going to be the next gen trend for sure.
Just grappling hooks.
You're not a video game if you do not have a grappling
and not
hook.
like Batman grappling hook where it's okay, you can grapple here. It's just throw it.
Yeah.
See where it latches on, do something with it, you know?
And there's one moment in particular, again, back to Nikki Jakey's video, I also had the same feeling like, wow, I did this. This was me discovering this. At the same moment, you're on like the second or third story of a office building, and you can break a window, and you see that the door is locked to go into this large meeting room. There's a lot of goodies in there. You know, I think Ellie even mentions, wow, there's a lot of stuff in there, but she can't get through. So there's like a balcony to that office space that you can't get to. So you break this window, and you still can't get over there. You have to swing. So you find a rope nearby, you throw it over this, after you've broken the window, you throw it over this like a light post that's bent over or something like that. But still, that's not enough. So what you notice is on the above the balcony is sort of like a glass awning. So you can throw a brick at that and then throw the rope over the bracings for that awning, and finally get over there. And not only do you get the goodies there, but across the street is a diner with a few clickers in there and a few runners. And I tried to get through that once. Like I broke a window and then ran to the other side and then broke another window. And so first I distracted them over here, then I distracted them over there. And then when I broke that second window, I ran back to the first to go inside and started to take them out. Fortunately, it didn't work. But when I finally got over to this place, I was able to just snipe those guys. Like I broke the middle window and sort of gathered them and was just able to snipe them.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because breaking glass in this game feels so good.
Yes. And many reviewers have mentioned this for good reason. It is incredible. The sound effects, the physics for the glass, and just almost like, not quite to that level, but Kratos' axe.
Oh man,
it just feels so real to break that glass.
Good.
And I'd like to see. I don't have a PlayStation 5 yet, but I'd like to see
what they
will,
do.
Actually. Yeah, correct.
They're not actually released. I feel as though like nobody's actually gotten one.
You just have cardboard boxes with the branding printed on there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did pick up a controller though, and it's great. I love video game controllers. I have one of almost every controller. That's how you interact with the game, and it's such a big deal to me. And I just love the design of things that are well and elegantly designed. Just do it for me. So anytime there's a new controller, I'm trying it out. I actually put in for a pre-order for the Amazon controller. Unfortunately, that didn't go through. That whole thing probably won't go through. It's a bad idea. Anyhow, PS5 controller. From what I hear, the early reviews of, what is it, Astrobots Arcade or whatever, that sort of like pack-in game that shows you all the features of the controller, seems to be incredible. I'd really like to see how the glass is, works there.
My favorite use of the PlayStation 4 controller ever?
PlayStation 4. Let me guess. Spray paint.
No. God, no. Not at all. He's referring, of course, to I was about to say Uncharted. He was referring, of course, to the infamous Second Son, where you flip the controller over, shake it, and it's very...
It's very... This is a launch title feature.
It's very gimmicky. No, my favorite...
We were under contractual obligation to do this.
My favorite use of a controller ever is in Death Stranding, when BB will start crying, and it's coming from the controller, and which is where the baby is in relation to Norman Reedus. His name's Norman Reedus, and you have to like rock him with the controller to calm him down.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
But it's what's great is it's actually exactly where the BB is on Norman Reedus, and so like you're just like, what am I doing? It's very surreal. If
only the Death Stranding controllers were more readily available.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Also, what a missed opportunity to actually put like a
BB in there.
A BB in there, yeah. Yeah, it's only on the promotional material. But really, great color. I would absolutely shell out a little bit of money. Not $120, but...
No, for sure. It's awesome.
I'd spend a little extra on that. Anyway, we have really sidetracked here. Glass, that's what we're talking about. I look forward to playing this again when it's remastered. Come on, when it's remastered on PS5 with the enhanced controls on the DualSense.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm very impressed with the presentation. And this is something that I've kind of started to latch onto in the past year or so. Really, since I played God of War, I've started to recognize that a lot of games, especially these big AAA games, are going for presentation over anything else. They want it to feel a certain way, and they invest their money into getting the game to feel that way. I mean, you can just look at Cory Balrog talking about the design of the axe in God of War, and how much time and money went into making that feel right. Like, what a weird thing for a game, right? When you're talking about a game, this thing that you are playing with mechanics and objectives and, impediments and a game, you're talking about most of your money, maybe not most, but a large portion of your money being dumped into making it feel a certain way. I think the best example of it is Red Dead Redemption 2, which I'm the first to admit it's not in my top 10 favorite games of all time. I do think it's a really good game that I like a lot, but it has a lot of problems. But what it does incredibly is presentation. I'd say it's the best example of that we have right now. It's every single thing feels the same way, feels consistent. You open a cabinet and there's stuff in there, and the way that Arthur interacts with things in that cabinet, all of those little details go into the overall feel of the world. Riding your horse and seeing something happen on the side of the trail, and every little thing is so much more about the presentation than the gameplay, to benefit and fault, right? And I think Last of Us 2 definitely follows in that trend of that presentation. How does it feel? It feels gritty and raw and gross and good, heavy, right? These are the things I'd say.
One of the biggest contributors to that is the proximity of the camera to the player. They really push that up close. And I watched some footage of Last of Us, because it's been a long time since I've played it. I didn't quite remember. And it was a little closer than I remembered it being, but certainly not as close as this.
This is intimate.
Intimate is correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I kind of want to pull back to old school versus new school game design. Because one thing that I think did feel very new school, for lack of a better term, is the level design. I think the level design in this game, I have not heard anybody really talk about it when I've kind of done some research. Listen to reviews, listen to analyses.
Some people definitely have, but it's not a huge driving force for the discussion.
Which is
the level design here is awesome.
It's the best Naughty Dog's ever done, for sure. And honestly, the verticality is incredible. The way that you interact with the environment, you can notice. One reviewer I was listening to said that there's these little spaces you have to squeeze through. And you can kind of move in between rooms without having to go the full real quote-unquote path. And he said those might as well just be gaps that you can walk through. And I think that's very incorrect, because you can get through there, which is a smaller line of sight. So if you get through there, your enemy now loses sight of you and you have a chance to hide.
But you also don't know what's on the other side of there.
You also don't know what's on the other side of there. Additionally, if you get through there and an enemy's following you, they also have to squeeze through now. So you have the advantage if they're going to follow you in that way now. Not only that, but you're in a different position in the building, and you got there maybe a shorter way than you could have gone going around. It adds a lot. Like, just there's a bunch of them. And I never once felt like it was a gimmick. Like, I always felt it was a meaningful thing to have there that I could interact with.
Yeah. They're very nice to have around.
Yeah, and the environments are very vertical. Something that I didn't really see a lot in the first game, from what I played at least. And it's incredible.
There were a couple spots where they played with that. Like, I remember very clearly I think it was a 2 or 3. I guess not as clearly as I just mentioned. A 2 or 3 story warehouse with just a wide variety of enemies, so many like thugs or bandits or whatever, and they're like every variety of human enemy that you've encountered so far, there's at least 3 of them here. It's a really difficult encounter, like towards the middle of the game, and they played with that verticality because there's a huge open space in the middle, and you've got these 2 or 3 floors that you can go up and down and sneak away from everyone, take them out silently, take their melee weapons. whatever. Throw bricks down below to distract people and then throw a bomb once you get a couple people in there. They played with it a little bit, but certainly not on the level they did here.
And they kind of go, they implement some interesting crouching in the grass kind of mechanics that are in a lot of other, stealth-driven games. But what's interesting is how the enemies will be able to find you in it regardless, and you have to be careful how you're hiding, when you're hiding. I would agree. I would say it's a little simplistic and definitely not interesting, but it does add to the overall layout of wherever you are. The wider, more open spaces are where it really shines, and you get a lot of them with Ellie. In this kind of first half of the game, where you will be in Seattle, excluding the very first portion, where it's still linear. You're going one place, but it's got a couple streets horizontal, a couple streets vertical, a couple different buildings. You don't have to kill every enemy. You don't have to sneak past every enemy. You can skip whole sections, or you can go and try to loot everything.
Yeah, that's really the biggest example of that. After that, they don't do anything on that scale again.
No, I'm talking about not about that though. I think we should go back to that. But I mean, like, you'll just drop in and okay, we're running away from the school now, and there's like 3 different ways you can go, and you can move around. Like, you get to really decide how to progress through this area, and it's a large space. Now, what Tyler mentioned is very early on, you actually get a full district of Seattle downtown with actual cross streets with names and multiple buildings that are optional. And
yeah, I think it's like 10 blocks, like a 10 block square.
Yeah, and it's pretty big. Only time it happens in the game. Little open worldy feel to it. It's very bizarre because it never shows up again. A lot of players were disappointed because it didn't show up again, and some players were disappointed because it was there. It's really up to preference. I enjoyed it, but I do think that the more downsized ones that have that level of variety of progression through the space are better examples of what Naughty Dog's offering with this level design.
Yeah, I definitely think the smaller areas are a really strong point in this game. As you mentioned, running away from the school, you've got 3, maybe 4 blocks that you can choose to go down, and a couple buildings that you can go under up. Yeah, exactly. All of that is really awesome. And yes, sneak around people. There might be a mixture of infected or human enemies, and maybe you can lure a couple human enemies into the area with the infected. All of that's up to you. You just need to get through the level.
It's definitely not as emergent as many other games that have come out, in the past 5 years, but it does have little moments like that really work. The level design is so good, it makes you want to play a more emergent game in that space. Mm-hmm. And that's not a detriment to the game. There's a space for linear, progression games, and I think Last of Us 2 uses these spaces well. I just think they're so well designed. There's so much more that could have been done in them.
Yeah, even something as simple as I really only just thought of this. Having the ability to make noise whenever you'd like. Like if you're crouched behind a
that's like stealth game staple.
Yeah, like why can't I like hit the side of the counter with my gun to distract someone to come over here?
My favorite. I mean,
that's got to be like one of the simplest things to implement.
Oh, yeah, and, you just activate the already present auditory sense of the AI.
As if
range.
You were to throw a bottle where you're standing.
Exactly, but, then you'd waste your bottle, which is very useful for combat, so why would I do that?
Or creating sound elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually what I used it for more. It wasn't until later game that I really started to use my whole kit. Because with both styles of gameplay, I found a comfortable space and didn't leave there too much. In the first half of the game, I was pretty stealthy. I used the bow a lot of silencers, and in the second half of the game,
you played like Zack.
Sure, yeah. I was using my whole kit.
I loved using. I think one of the best combat segments in the game comes from. There's a sect, this kind of religious sect, a cult, if you will, and the first time they attack you, it's scripted. You get shot, and it teaches you, okay, when you get hit with an arrow, you'll continually take damage until you pull the arrow out. Little section, nicely done. It's in-game tutorial kind of thing. Shows you how it works. It's good. It's well presented. But now you have these guys looking for you, and they're all in these brown cloaks, and they all have bows and arrows, and they're communicating guerrilla warfare style with whistles. Not like whistles, but like, they're like whistling with their lips, and it's very well presented because now you're in a situation where you are at a disadvantage, and you're trying to progress through this section of, it's a park. Basically, you're in a park. And
think of it like Central Park.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a small version of that, and it's fun to progress through, and you're hiding, and then a little bit later when you're going down this boat section, they'll start attacking you, and they're attacking you from this basically destroyed building that's flooded. So you come in on your boat, and the bottom section is open, so you can park your boat down there, and then you can go up these 2 floors where they're basically trying to kill people who coming by in boats. Incredibly fun and well designed, and you feel like this is a new way for me to progress through this environment and take these guys out. So just again and again showing excellent level design.
Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed any conflict between the 2 factions. So you've got the faction that you're up against, the WLF, the wolves, and that sort of like cult faction,
which
they are against each other. Yeah,
they're called the Seraphites.
Seraphites, yeah, it's like a pejorative term. The scars.
Yeah, because they have to scar themselves to become a part
Joker.
of the. Yeah, like a smiley face kind of scar to become a part of the cult.
Mm-hmm. So I really like anytime you're in the middle of a conflict between the 2 of them,
which is not very often.
Or most times, it's not very often.
And you know what it reminded me of? A very toned, kind of dumbed down Metal Gear Solid 4.
I have no frame of reference here.
And the reason is...
Never played a Metal Gear game.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We will.
But the reason it reminds me of that is because the whole game is cutscene. No, I'm just kidding. Because the whole game is present in... I say the whole game. A good chunk of the game is present in active war zones. So you're no longer sneaking through these bases and everybody's on the same team. You're trying to not get seen in an active war zone between 2 people. And obviously, Metal Gear Solid 4 is a little bit more robust stealth-wise in terms of your kit and the way you can, manipulate the AI and get through, essentially. But I immediately, when those segments happened, I'm like, oh, I'm in. I've done this before. I know how to do this work. So you can play them off of each other, reveal the location. That's what I like about it so much. Oh, then... Yeah. Oh, I'm very excited for you then.
For me to watch Metal Gear Solid 4?
Dude, it's got the gameplay for the first, 3 chapters. Wow, it's really good. It's really good.
I will play it eventually. We will get around to it for the cast.
I'm going to bring it up again a little later, actually, because there's a part that I think there's another part that's very reminiscent of it. But that's a story moment. We'll get to it.
Sure.
Before we continue on to that, though, let's kind of... You already mentioned the difference between the way that you played the game in the first half and the second half. This is the thing that you were worried about talking about, spoiler-wise. The switch of protagonist, essentially, after the game. So at the beginning of the game, you play as Ellie, and then you play as Abby, who's the other protagonist, for a little bit, and then it cuts back to Ellie, and you're just Ellie for 12 hours. Or 10 hours or something like that. And then you cut back to Abby. At this kind of cliffhanger moment. Time rolls back 3 days. You're playing as Abby. And...
I thought you were talking about something else. I was like, that took you 10 hours? What?
No. No.
Okay, understood.
No. But what's interesting is not only... So there are some gameplay differences, and I do want to address that. But again, presentation goes into this. Ellie is thin. Gaunt might be the right word for it. Especially at the end of the game, man.
At the end of the game, there's a very different word that describes both of those women.
Yeah, but, Ellie is not this trained fighter. She's a trained survivor now, right? Mm-hmm. She's watched how Joel fights.
That's a huge distinction between these 2 characters and the 2 play styles that they invite.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of gameplay difference in terms of the core gameplay, but there are changes. And what's interesting about Ellie is... she gets a permanent shiv, which in the first game, you need a shiv, which is consumable. It breaks to kill clickers. Ellie can just stealthily to kill clickers stealthily, which for the uninitiated, clickers are zombies that can only hear you, and they have echolocation basically. So
that's basically exactly what they sound like.
It's a horrible.
Now, real talk though. Side note: the sound design here is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
the clickers are so terrifying.
Yeah,
and I played this game for close to 30 hours. I don't know. I didn't actually check my time. Wow, that would have been terrible. Almost spilt my water there. Close to 30 hours, but not one time did I not clench up when a clicker killed me.
Oh, dude, it's so disturbing.
And it's the same animation, depending on which position you're in. If you're prone, thank you very much. If you're standing or whatever, there's one animation for each position you might be in. Every single time, it just wrecked me.
It's jarring.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
It's the same sound effect, the same animation. Never did it get old.
Yeah.
Never was like, okay, I'm dying again. I was like, oh my god, I'm dying! Oh!
Which in Amnesia Rebirth, it did happen where I was like, okay, I'm dying again.
Sure, yeah.
Let's get going. But definitely, you're right. Not in this game. And what's really cool about the difference between these two women is more in the presentation of how it's done. So when Ellie kills someone stealthily, it's grabs them and then just shoves the shiv in, basically almost tears their throat out, and there's just just a awesome amount of blood, and they're gagging and gurgling and stuff. Abby is jacked, and
she's huge,
which is very much a part of her story. It's we'll touch base on that when we get to the story. I think it's extremely
I've heard someone
interesting.
talk about it, describe her as comically muscular. I don't think that's
disagree.
The case, because I've seen women.
I know
that
personally women like that,
and it shows her when you
Zarya. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but jokes aside, I really do, and that is a body type for women who are passionate about
an uncommon body type, but an actual. I don't think it's comically large.
No, not at all.
And she's given good reasons.
She's
to
not
be
a
like
bodybuilder.
No.
She's not just where.
But unlike Ellie, you make a perfect distinction. Ellie is a trained survivor. This woman is a soldier.
Yes.
And good God, do not cross her. She is terrifying.
Yeah, and so when she stealth
kills people with her elbows.
Yeah, bare hands. So when you stealth kill someone as Abby, you either just choke them out or break their neck.
Yeah, and not twist their head and their shoulders in the opposite direction. You have them in a chokehold and then you just pull their neck out of place. Yeah. She's terrifying.
Yeah, and she's totally awesome.
I love Abby.
Yeah, Abby's a great character. I really enjoy her, which is a controversial opinion, actually. Very controversial. But I think she's a good character. But the presentation alone kind of gets the player in a different headspace, I think, to play the game differently.
Yeah, you're right. There's not many gameplay differences, but I was immediately ready to play differently.
Because Abby cannot kill clickers without a shiv. And she has to craft a shiv and consume it to kill a clicker stealthily. I never even did once, actually. I just snuck around him or shot him in the face because she has a hunting pistol.
Oh my god.
So you do have different weapons. Some of them perform the same function. So Ellie has a pump action shotgun. Abby has a double barrel shotgun. Something like that. But then there are some pretty big differences. So Ellie has her revolver and her pistol. Just kind of, normal. I think it's I don't actually didn't pay attention to what it was, but, just a normal magazine loaded pistol and a revolver. Abby has her magazine loaded pistol and a hunter's pistol, which is a single shot, rip your head off kind of pistol. It's so
It basically
awesome.
does as much damage as a shotgun.
Did you put the scope on it?
Yes, I did put the scope on it. It's my favorite weapon in the game.
Yeah, it's the most satisfying weapon in the game. So Ellie has her hunting rifle, of course. She has to have her hunting rifle. Bolt action. It's awesome. Really fun to use.
That's my second favorite weapon.
I do like it a lot. But Abby gets this I'm not familiar enough with firearms, but kind of almost SKS rifle, a single action.
Well, you can upgrade it to be burst.
A semi-auto, single action. Semi-auto, you can upgrade it to be burst. I didn't do that because ammo's scarce.
I did, and I was like, I literally didn't use it once. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, I gave it I did upgrade it, though. I can't believe I said single action. I'm very disappointed in myself. Semi-auto rifle, and it's incredibly good. I think it's...
I didn't use it very much, actually.
You should, because one time I was out of ammo for my shotgun. I'm like, great, now I'm going to die. And there's like 2 clickers running at me, so I switched to the rifle. And just pop, 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 done. Like, I was like, whoa, why am I not using this gun? Like, it's
sure,
so
I used
good.
it when I needed to, but I used the shotgun more. See, again, there's not many gameplay differences, but I was ready to play much more aggressively. I think one of the bigger complaints, I don't know if this is still one of the bigger complaints for you, but the stealth environments got a little bland for you.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
I didn't feel that in the beginning because I try to, as often as I can, to become the character. And as you mentioned, Ellie is a trained survivor. And I played stealthy, and I was rewarded consistently, or like I felt fulfilled, rather, consistently getting through the environments in a stealthy manner. Sure, I played aggressively sometimes. If my stealth went sideways, I didn't have a choice. But as soon as the game shifts to Abby, something just clicked in me, and I was ready to just kill people with my elbows.
The first combat encounter, you are in the back of a truck, and there's a bunch of guys on horses shooting at you, and it's like, here you go, have some infinite ammo for a couple seconds, and you just get to unload. I think that sets the tone pretty well for Abby as well.
Sure, that's a good point.
I will say, though, that for me, this is a complaint that I have on the gameplay. I don't know how many people share it. I saw a couple people on YouTube, a couple reviewers as well, who shared this sentiment with me, but there's this kind of path of least resistance in the game. And Abby much less so, for sure. I think there is more kind of forced combat with the Abby portion of the game. But Ellie, stealth is almost always the best option, almost always the simpler option, and does not consume resources in any way, almost ever. Maybe you have to throw a bottle to distract someone that you just go pick up again.
Sure.
It is obviously the superior way to get through as many areas as you can, because you don't waste anything. The problem is the tools that you're given that you're not wasting are way more fun to play with than the stealth. And so I wish, like me as a player, I'm mature enough as a gamer to go, I'm going to play my way. Sorry, game, I enjoy this more. I think it comes a lot from the kind of games that I like to play.
Sure.
It's kind of, make the game what you want it to be. And so I did. And I had a blast. Literally, I would set trap mines, and I would do the classic stealth game. Hey, guys. You peek your head out, and, they go, what was that? And they walk over to you, and you're just sneaking back in your little solid snake prone position, and they just explode, all of them, just little things like that, or just as simple as they have a dog chasing you, so I lay a trap mine. I'm a terrible person, I kill dogs, and I just sneak away so my scent goes over the trap mine and they'll just walk in and blow up. Like, things like that are way more fun than...
I didn't use that whole kit until the end of the game, because with Ellie in the first half of the game, I was really resorting to stealth as often as I could.
You get a bow and arrow, too.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
And I
that
use
really
that
helps with
bit.
stealth, because if you get a headshot, A, they're dead, and B, you have a chance to recover your arrow. Mm-hmm. So again, very good strategy. The chance you won't waste your resource. It's an encouraged strategy again.
Now, I did use stealth a pretty significant amount with Abby in the second half of the game, but it was a completely different kind of stealth. With Ellie, I was really taking my time. I was trying to lure
not
people
engaging as much as you could.
No, I was crouching and doing stealth, but it was like Rambo style stealth. I was going in hard, and if this position doesn't allow me to take out 4 enemies, it's not worth my time.
Yeah, dude.
I was with Abby. It was such a natural shift, and then by the time it shifts back, I took some of that.
Do you know what I noticed? That I was really playing a super aggressive stealth style, and let us preface, we're only playing on normal. I had never finished the first one, obviously. I didn't know how the difficulty settings work, so I try to typically go for the second hardest difficulty, but I was familiar enough to know that the way the game does difficulty is very different than other games. It actually, changes. There's a permadeath mode. There's ones that actually try to like strip out the gaminess as well. So I was like, you know what? Let's go normal. I would have gone hard, knowing what I know now. The next level up. But there's also accessibility-wise, which most reviewers talk about, is the accessibility options. You can customize which parts of the game are harder and which parts are easier.
I'd really like to take
enemy AI and all that stuff.
Every facet of the enemy AI can be tailored to your play style. If you would like to, not be noticed while you are prone, you can do that. Which, doesn't really fit.
You can auto pick up items so you don't have to hammer the triangle
That's
button.
the greatest thing. I actually didn't... I forget how many options there are for the, pick up items sort of accessibility options, but...
Oh, it's a scavenging portion of the game? Forward button? Triangle.
Yeah. It gets a little tiresome pretty quick.
Yeah.
I like that you can hold triangle to pick up all of the items in
an area. We should just hold triangle and walk, and just pick things.
Does that work?
It didn't work for me. Maybe I was doing it wrong though.
Oh.
I also just turned on auto pickup.
Yeah, when I play it again, which I'd like to take a sidebar, real quick. We've mentioned before with Darkwood, I don't often replay games. My shelf currently, just behind the camera, I've got just under 600 games on there. I got 2 bookshelves. I got like 4 bookshelves. Let's be real. My Steam library is huge. I oftentimes don't have time or even the patience to play games a second time. There have been 3 times this year alone that I cannot wait to go back. That's Darkwood, Last of Us Part 2, and something we'll talk about with our Game of the Year discussion.
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about it, even today. I love that game, but we'll talk about it with our Game of the Year discussion. I'm so happy I finally played it. But I want to play this again so bad. Yes, the gameplay itself has some shortcomings, which honestly we've been talking pretty positively about a lot of it.
Sure,
which means those shortcomings aren't. Yeah, those shortcomings aren't.
In fact, many people's issue is that the game is fun because of the way the story presents itself.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah, but it is an enjoyable game to play. It has problems, some that are fairly glaring, honestly, but because I think we haven't... I bet you 10 years down the line, when people go back to talk about this game in retrospect, here's my prediction. This is being recorded in 2020. My prophetic nature shall be revealed here. I bet you that the story will be looked at more positively because all the marketing BS and all that investment into that stuff is no longer going to be in the picture. It's going to be out of the picture. Some people may be going into this one first. I'm betting you.
Which shouldn't happen.
No.
Because I think a lot of what they're trying to do relies on the first one.
Yeah.
Your investment in the first one.
And honestly, I think that the story will be viewed more positively and the gameplay will be viewed far more negatively because we are in this transition period between generations. I have a feeling that, I'm currently watching game design philosophies change, right now even. Mm-hmm. Again, that static dynamic thing you mentioned is just one thing. And I think that the oldness, quote unquote, of this game will
quickly become apparent.
It will become more and more apparent. So that's what I feel, is that the general opinion on the game will probably remain... it won't remain as controversial. It'll probably kind of converge into this above average, is what I think eventually what the general consensus of the game will be. So yeah, that's my prophecy. We'll see. I'm gonna look back at the 10 years and just go, what an idiot.
No, I think that's pretty fair because you're watching gameplay conventions sort of shift direction now. It's easy to observe, but this game is a couple years behind the curve already. So, when a huge transition does take place, whenever that might be, when the next generation happens and games are, there are very few...
Fundamentally designed differently.
Sure. fundamentally designed differently. This game will be looked at as a generation behind its generation.
I think that's fair.
Yes, some of the gameplay is fun. Those guns feel great.
They do.
People mention the jump button. Why is that? I don't know why it was ever mentioned at all. That seems like such a silly option to have a jump button. I don't think a jump button is necessary in every game, and when there's a jump button, it needs to mean something. It doesn't mean something here.
No, it means press it so you can get on top of that truck hood.
Sure, so it's a vault button.
Yeah,
which is different.
Because you can jump, and it is the most immersion breaking thing, because they just kind of lift their knees up.
It is not as immersion breaking. I've only played the tutorial a couple times. It is nowhere near as terrible as Geralt's jump.
Oh, that thing cracks.
Yeah, that's the first thing. I set my controller down because I couldn't stop laughing at how stupid Geralt's jump is.
Yeah, it's very silly.
Now, again, I've only played the tutorial. I know the game is great.
It is great. I'm going to defend it since he hasn't played it. I love The Witcher 3.
Sure. I will love The Witcher 3 if I ever find the time to play it. But that jump button is silly. So silly. Well, maybe it, has more uses than in The Last of Us 2. But anyway, the jump button is silly for people to harp on. It's a vault button at the most, which is useful, of course.
Yeah,
vaulting over things is awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I even saying about gameplay? I don't remember now.
It's okay. Let's keep going, though. I think that we've kind of hit on a lot of good stuff already, but I do want to kind of come back to the Abby-Ellie differences. Obviously, the biggest one is the shivs and the way you can stealth take down. The next is definitely the guns. While a lot of them serve the same functional purpose, Ellie, has to sit there and draw her bow to get it to fire. Abby just has a crossbow. Click the button. No control over arc or anything. You just click the button.
You can recover them much more often as well.
Much more often. So little things like that.
I did find myself failing some situations because I didn't realize it didn't have as much of an arc. I was treating it as though it had a huge arc.
Amazing.
And I'd shoot.
Did you ever use arrows to just distract people? They were too precious a resource that didn't do it very often, but I did every once in a while.
I think I may have once.
Yeah, they're a little too precious, I think, to waste on something like that usually. But, yeah, and then you have with Ellie, you have the traps, you have the flashbangs, dirty tactics kind of things. Abby has a pipe bomb, a grenade. You throw it, it blows up, ba ba boom, done.
It makes that noise.
Ba ba boom. No,
yes, that's correct.
It's again, it fits the characters really well, but other than that, the core gameplay loop itself isn't changing.
Correct.
Just a little tweak here or there.
But I think it's pretty telling how ready I was, because it was
presentation,
immediate,
man.
Yeah.
Presentation.
That I was ready to completely shift gameplay styles, and it didn't take me any time. It felt so incredibly natural to shift to that, really visceral style of combat.
Yeah, I agree.
Or rather aggressive. I mean, Ellie's pretty visceral. But she does show
well, it's all visceral. It's that gross, up close, gory.
She enacts violence in the shadows, though.
Yeah. I think that it is a testament to the presentation and how quality is that you, as a player, were able to just shift gears immediately, just without missing a beat. This is now how this game is going to be because of who I'm playing as.
And it wasn't just how the game is going to be. I wanted to play differently.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Immediately, as soon as I woke up.
Because of how she's presented, down to her character design, to the way she moves. Because they do move differently. Ellie, when she's going prone, will crouch down and go prone. Abby will throw herself down onto the ground.
And not just that, I don't know if it actually has any mechanical difference. I don't know if Ellie is quieter and Abby is louder. I mean, to you can hear the difference, but I don't know if the enemies can.
But the presentation to the player,
she wears big, military issued boots, and she just stomps around like she's I don't remember his name, the guy from Resident Evil 2, the big enemy that you just hear like 3 stories in the opposite direction.
Mr. X.
Yeah, she stomps around like Mr. X.
Thump, 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 thump. Yeah,
boots.
You're the hunter.
Yeah.
Did you ever? This happened to me only once. I was looking around like, oh, I think everybody's dead, and usually they'll say something afterwards, like, wow, that was a tough fight, or oh my god, I can't believe that's over. And they weren't saying that. I'm like, I'm missing somebody, and I see this one dude by himself pacing back and forth, and I'm like, hunter mode engaged, dun 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 dun, and I just start like crawling, getting up to him, start messing with his mind, throwing stuff. Messing with the AI is fun, especially because they're so. It's good AI. I think it's good. They maybe not in how by themselves, but the way they interact with each other. Everybody, of course, mentions they all have names. If one of them dies, no, Bob, no,
yeah.
But what's more interesting is, they'll work together and they'll say, hey, over here, or you go first, and they'll walk ahead while the other person stays back and watches their back. They're smart.
They're also presented in a particular way.
Smart might be the wrong word, but
you mentioned smart, I think, is the wrong word. They're not totally stupid, but they
work together well.
Sure, they do run into some areas where you can really manipulate them.
It's great.
But they're presented incredibly. You've got the names. Everyone has mentioned that, but also the way they die. When you have depleted their health, whatever that might be, it's under the hood. You don't see health bars or numbers or anything like that. But let's say, your shotgun fully depletes their health. You kill them because you've blasted off their arm. They don't fall down. Their character model does not fall down. They kneel down and grab their arm or grab their stub with their remaining arm, and they screech, and they fall into this like 12-second dying animation. And they're screaming, alerting. Yeah. They're alerting everyone else. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, if you don't kill someone with a headshot, they will not. Their character will not just exist being. They will still die in this world as you imagine anyone else would die.
And many of these things that we're talking about, a lot of them were done in the first game. They're just better, more realized, more full, more rich.
I don't remember this being done.
No, I'm just saying as a general statement. As a general statement, a lot of the ideas and the things that are being done in this game are from the first game, just more well realized. More hardware behind it. More. Just more resources to allocate. So the presentation...
Speaking of hardware, the presentation is incredible.
Oh no!
The last generation ended on, for all intents and purposes, ended on The Last of Us, and just to look at them side by side, this generation is way more of a leap than I thought it was initially. Just look at The Last of Us 1 and The Last of Us 2, specifically on PS3. The remastered still looks dated, but it looks better than the PS3 does. Look at the PS3 version and look at The Last of Us 2. That the ending of this generation is pretty significant. That's a pretty big leap. And I still, when I was revisiting some of the footage for the original game, I totally forgot. This was 7 years ago. This is quite a while ago. And that game still looks great, but this game is such a leap forward. I think it's this, and I haven't played Red Dead 2, but I've certainly never played a game that looks as good as this.
Oh, this is
on the PS4, on the base PS4.
Yeah, this definitely looks incredible. It definitely makes the PS4 work for it.
Yeah. I had to. I got some new
got a leaf blower in my
new headphones,
cabinet.
But I got new speakers that are awesome. I forget what the creative, like, big ones with the double speakers. I don't know much about speakers. Anyway, they're great. They're really, really awesome because I haven't been able to play much at work and certainly not with my headphones.
Yeah.
So since I've been playing with headphones a lot less often, got some sick ass speakers. They are so nice. But if you're not using speakers, I had to use my headphones because the old ones I had were at full volume, still not enough to overpower the fan on the base PS4. It was about to lift off. If I didn't have another console on top of that one, it would have levitated.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, man, you want to take a break before we talk about story?
Sure. We can definitely do that. Anything else you want to mention on gameplay?
No, just want to make sure that everybody knows that we are on Patreon. We'd love your support. At just the $2 a month tier, you can get into our Discord. We're trying really hard to build up that community. We want to have a community of gamers who share games together. That's our whole thing. We really want to double down on that. But we can't do it without people. And we'd love to have you guys there. We're also on Twitter, Instagram. Check us out there. Just follow us. Anything you can do to help support us, we'd really appreciate it. We just honestly love sharing games with each other, and we just want to be able to do that with more and more people. So come on in. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back. We are ready to dive into them spoilers.
Spoilers, yes. Stop watching. If you are
not just in
anticipating, not just in general, if you're anticipating playing this game, if you're very, well, even if you're not like sensitive to spoilers, we're going to dive into everything.
Yeah, and I think that the ending of this game is incredibly unique. I think it's jarring, and it's not a normal way to end a game. It's very reminiscent of stories, even like classic literature that outstays the welcome in a lot of ways and uses that to incredible effect. So,
surprising effect.
Going to be talking about that. So, if you're interested at all, go play the game. It took me, I think, 22 hours.
Yeah, at this point, if you are interested in at least the gameplay, seeing what they have to offer with this new hardware, what they're doing with the sound design, the level design, the weapons.
Let the story surprise you.
Yeah, just definitely.
Let it surprise you. It's we'll talk about it. It's
controversial. From here on out, there won't be a warning on screen. Spoilers start now.
Here be spoilers.
Here be spoilers.
So tell me, did you like the story?
I can't get over it. I finished it
in a good way or bad way.
In a very, very good way. And I don't know if I'm just like a freaking idiot, because a lot of the people I follow on YouTube, actually,
who I respect,
who I often agree with, just have completely opposite opinions.
Here's what I'm going to say. As someone who is very passionate about writing in particular, if you were to take out everything except the story from this game, it is a well-written, mature story with some problems, sure, I'll give that, but it's good writing. It is good writing. I'm sure of it. You have, incredible use of recontextualization through Abby's point of view after going through all that stuff as Ellie. Definitely don't use it as much as I'd like them to a lot of the time, but they do use that. Very clear character arcs that impact the other parts of the story, if not directly, then thematically for the player. So it's well done, and it's a lot of ballsy moves in terms of not doing a back and forth, day one with Ellie, day one with Abby. It's you do Ellie's campaign, you do Abby's campaign after a brief little intro. So that was kind of ballsy and an interesting move, and it paid off in my opinion. So
it did. So real quick, you asked if I enjoyed the story. This has resonated with me in ways that I definitely did not anticipate. I finished the game late at night, I think, probably at like midnight or so. And I woke up the next morning and actually cried over a cup of coffee. And it's been a pretty depressing week. I also finished BoJack Horseman and The Last of Us in the same week. And that's too much. That's too much, man. So maybe I was just already super emotional, but I don't want any of that for any of them.
Sure.
But it happened, and it wasn't like it was me doing it. I didn't have a choice, which we'll definitely get to. About. There's maybe less than 1% player agency in this game. Well, at least pertaining to the narrative. Of course, you can go through the levels in a variety of ways, but pertaining to the narrative, you have no agency. It's a very particular story being told, and I tried multiple times to sway that story, but that's not what's happening here. It doesn't use, for the most part, it doesn't use the medium, I think, to its full effect, allowing you to sort of shape that story.
Come to those revelations through your personal actions. Yeah. Going back to Nakey Jakey's analysis, he talks about Metal Gear Solid 3, in which it actually, during a boss fight, brings up every single character model of everyone you've killed and makes you walk through them.
That is pretty interesting.
Like it's
again, no Metal Gear in my life,
but it's hey, it wasn't me bringing it up. No, but it's a good comparison. There's nothing like that. In fact, there's a moment where Abby goes in and sees a bunch of dead bodies where you're like, oh, it's gonna show everybody Ellie's killed. No, it's just gonna show you
like a random guy,
some random character that was in the intro cutscene with Abby. Like, it's definitely not using it in the way that I'd like it to. But in terms of how the story's written, it's very well written.
Yes.
I think it's really good, and what sold it for me was the ending and the way they chose to wrap it up. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the bad. Let's air out the bad real quick.
Sure.
Because I think you and I are both going to gush over big parts of this story.
Big parts. I think
the supporting cast
some of what
sucks.
you're about to say.
I am going to say this, and I know we're going to disagree. Not entirely.
Certainly not entirely. Yes, the supporting cast
I think
sucks.
the supporting cast is not well realized, especially when compared to what I know of the first game. This is just these guys are one-dimensional.
Yes.
And my only exception that I have is Owen. Thank you, Owen. I think Owen is used to great effect and is an interesting character who I like.
He's definitely used to great effect. I don't like him particularly. Not because he's a bad character. I just don't like Owen.
Oh, I like Owen.
He's just like a pretty bland guy.
I disagree.
That I might not... I mean, I'd probably hang out with him. I'm not an asshole. He's a nice guy.
He's probably...
and he's used to great effect. But
he's probably who I would end up being in the apocalypse, honestly. The guy who's like, guys, let's just chill out the aquarium. Like, let's just forget all this BS about fighting other people. Like, sure, I'll do my job, but like, let's just get away for a little bit, you know, man? Sure. Like, that's what I like about him.
Now, you're already going to mention it. One of the most one-dimensional characters in the game, Dina.
I know, and it's unfortunate because of how significant she is to Ellie.
Yeah. She's not used to as great of an effect as Owen. That's for sure.
Yeah, and
I'll agree with you.
And she is definitely... There's no chemistry with her and Ellie. None. And I thought I was the only one who recognized it, but after watching a couple, reviews,
I recognized it also.
People see that.
And, I'm probably making some stretches here, but I really like Dina. I like Jesse, too. So
don't like Jesse.
Dina is...
He's hot, though.
Sure. Dina is Ellie's girlfriend, recent girlfriend, who recently broke up with Jesse. Jesse...
I love one of my favorite lines in the game is when you're playing as Ellie and you're out with Jesse trying to, I forget which particular mission it is, but, Ellie's like, yeah, sorry, man, you're just not my type. You're handsome and all, you're just not my type. He goes, what, Asian? It's just that got me. That I was like, okay, you made me smile. Good job, Jesse.
That's for sure. That definitely elicited a little bit of a smirk. But I do think they're used to greater effect than maybe you do, because they are some of, if not the most grounded characters in the game. They are normal people.
The everyman.
Exactly. They have seemingly, for all of their lives, grown up in Jackson. they might know a little bit about the before times, but certainly not like Ellie. They've not had to survive like Ellie.
Well, Dina talks about having to do some pretty awful stuff, and
sure, but not to the level that Ellie has, because Ellie is not completely open with her. I think because they are so grounded and they have become so comfortable in their lives and their normal lives. I think that serves as a pretty strong contrast, and I really, they didn't go very far with it, but I really appreciated the moment when Jesse comes back into the picture. Yeah. He's been following the two ladies. Dina and Ellie go off on this revenge mission. Dina supporting Ellie.
He's worried about him, so he goes after him.
Yeah, and you don't know until maybe a third of the way through the game, and you finally meet Jesse again while you're on your own for a little bit as Ellie. Comes back into the picture, and as soon as they're reunited, they went through maybe an ugly breakup. It happens off camera, but when they're reunited, that chemistry is immediately. It takes 0.2 seconds for you to realize, oh, these people are perfect together.
Well, sure, like they're obviously compatible people.
Yes, they're very compatible people, which is not the case for Dina and Ellie. They're pretty different people, but I appreciate.
But their personalities are so similar, and that's probably the problem. Is like
Ellie and Dina?
Yeah, they have similar. Like, sure, their past and their history and stuff, but like, Dina might be a little bit more, cheery, and Ellie a little more quiet. But in terms of, they're both, snarky, female, protagonist-esque people, and
I think Dina's significantly less snarky.
I don't know about that.
She has a few moments, but I feel like I'm not saying they're forced, but I feel like if Dina were a real person, they would take a lot more to work towards those snarky moments than Ellie just having like a quiver. One thing that's very comebacks.
Different is a quiver of comebacks. Yes. Yeah, but I will agree that Dina definitely, the main personality difference is Dina's far more an initiator. She goes after what she wants. She does what she thinks is best in the moment. Ellie is a little more reserved. Anyway, that being said, I'm not a fan of the supporting cast. Almost
largely, that's the case. Yes, I'm not going to disagree with you there.
I also think that there's not enough time committed to certain relationships that are really like crux of the narrative relationships. The one that I'm thinking of right now is Abby and Lev, which is kind of the Joel Ellie relationship of this game, and like I think it does work and it does function, but I would have liked more time to see them grow and bond, and not so much. Just kind of have to take it on the game's authority that they're close now.
And it's a very difficult balance to strike, because already the game is twice as long as the previous game, and a pretty decent amount longer than maybe any of the games that they've made up to this point, or at least their recent games. It feels sort of out of character at this point. I don't remember how long all the Jack games were, but at this point, it feels sort of out of character to have a game that is, pushing 35 hours, which sounded like it might be a little bloated to me. Honestly,
that wasn't my experience. I only put 22 into it, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I probably put closer to 30, but I don't think I put more than 30. I'd have to check
Sure.
I should have checked my my playtime, but what was I just saying? Oh, the characters. It's a strong balance. A difficult balance to strike. If you spend too much time on a character, then you spent too much time on that character, and that will be a complaint. If you don't spend enough time, then
sure. I think for me, just because it's such a significant relationship, because that is the relationship that will carry Abby's character through past the end of the game, right? That's supposedly the character that's continuing her transformation after Owen, right? I don't think there's enough there, but that's a minor complaint for me. There's enough there for me to just go, okay, I believe you.
Yeah, I didn't find it to be unsatisfactory, and I did appreciate that relationship quite a bit. And especially towards the beginning of that relationship, the Lev and what is his sister's name? I forget already.
Me too.
Okay. So Lev and his sister, one of them asks, why are you helping us? And Abby is ready to admit, I just want to feel better about myself. So that's why.
Yeah,
so she is trying,
which is a step better than where she was, to be honest. Because where she was is, Joel from the first game going to just run over someone in need because they might hurt him, and you get to see her transform. So let's talk about that. Let's move away from the bad if you're done there.
Honestly, aside from the supporting cast, I don't have much to say, dude. I'm still thinking about this game. It's 4 days past credits, and
I do think it's one of the strongest video game narratives that I've experienced.
It struck me...
The only one that comes to mind that is definitely better in my mind is, for me at least, is Red Dead 2.
I don't know if I'll ever play that game.
It's a big game.
Not because I don't want to, but honestly...
it took me 70 hours.
I don't know.
It took me 70 hours to beat it.
Mm-hmm.
And Red Dead 2 has its narrative problems. In fact, I'd argue it might even have... Well, no, but it has, a similar amount of narrative issues.
Sure.
But the difference is in... well, I can talk about Red Dead 2 all day. Let's go back to this game. But what I do want to talk about, since you mentioned it, is... Let's just talk about Ellie and Abby. I want to talk about Ellie. I want to talk about Abby. I want to talk about their character arcs and why I think that it's a good narrative and why I think it's a strong narrative and why I think that it is a narrative worth experiencing. I've heard a lot of people talk about how this game is about revenge. And I absolutely disagree 100%. I believe that revenge is the plot that is driving the bigger themes of this game. And I'll be able to defend that when we talk about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to preface that by saying I don't think that this game is really about what many reviewers that I've seen take away from it. So let's talk about... Can we talk about Abby first? Is that okay?
Sure.
I really want to talk about Abby. So
we both love Abby.
Yeah, so Abby is the character that obviously received the most controversy. She was the surprise character on the protagonist switch. Nobody, everybody's disappointed in this game was frustrated that Abby was such a central part. And I think she's a great character. So she kills Joel brutally at the beginning of the game to start the revenge quest. But, you figure out that she was just on her own revenge quest because Joel killed her father, who was the doctor who was going to save Ellie.
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to take a sidebar there.
Or sorry, who's going to kill Ellie to save everybody else but the vaccine.
Correct. So she... Please correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't have time to go back and replay those sections or, rewatch those sections. But I know that the doctor that was killed is Abby's father. But when she's killing Joel, and later in one of the flashbacks that, when they finally, get a lead to Joel, she doesn't mention her father. She mentions... the fact that he prevented a vaccine from being made.
That's probably making her feel better about it.
That's how you're interpreting that?
That's probably...
Okay.
That's definitely what I'm taking away from it. Because it's very obviously the moment that she decides Joel needs to die is when she sees her dad. Right?
Sure.
So I would argue... And it would match up with Ellie, because Ellie's father figure died, and so she goes to kill Abby. But her justification is that because Abby killed Joel, which is... far more simplistic, but the real reason is revealed later at the end. It kind of unearths what's actually going on for her character, and I think that's the moment where I'm like, this is great writing. But let's talk about Abby. So Abby starts the game as a dirtbag. Abby starts the game as I'm out to survive and protect my people dirtbag. Doesn't put any more thought into it than that. So she's Joel. She's Joel at the beginning of the first game, right? That's very much what's happening. And she goes on the same transformation that Joel goes through. But the way it's presented is incredible. So both Abby and Ellie go through flashback segments. And the first flashback segment with Abby is showing her father saving a zebra to make you realize he's a good guy. Just kind of simple.
He is. You didn't even need that. He's just like a basic-ass dad.
I was about to say, he is really just a down-to-earth guy. You can tell he's raising his daughter well, that he cares about her.
Yeah, that's it. You didn't need the zebra. Yeah. Which, fine, the zebra's a nice little moment, but he's obviously just
pays
a
attention to his
nice
daughter.
guy.
He recognizes, her crush. Like he's a good dad, and you like him. He's a good guy. So what comes next after that, though, is her flashback when she's dating Owen. So they're both still kind of young. She's not super jacked yet. That's kind of like how you can tell how far along in the story it is. It's how jacked Abby is. Mm. And he's messing with her fear of heights, and they're up on a Ferris wheel. Well, they find an aquarium, and they go in there to spend some time together, and they're about to have sex, and Abby stops him and says, we should go back to training. And this moment is brilliant, because without saying it explicitly at all to the player, you now have a recognition that the reason Abby and Owen break up is because Owen he doesn't want to just survive. He values life. He values time with people that he loves. He values the things that aren't war, the things that aren't he'll still do those things, but this moment in the aquarium with someone that he loves and cares about, just spending time together and being away from it all, making it their place, that's what he values.
Yeah, I think Abby forgets the reason she's fighting.
Yeah.
And
so when she says no, and he's a really cool dude. She doesn't want to have sex, and he's like, it's okay. I totally get it. Just talk to me. Like, where are you at? He's really trying to help. And she goes, we just need to go back to training. We got to get better. And that's the moment.
Because she said no, it's because she said, I want to go train. And I think she does totally forget why she's trying to survive. And they're in a pretty good place where they can, reach for this little bit of normalcy. And she refuses the normalcy.
Because she's driven.
Rather, she doesn't even know it's there currently.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. It just doesn't register with her what he's trying to do and what he's getting at. Her sights are only fixed on, I need to get revenge, and and in the process she starts to become more ingratiated into this. It's honestly a cult in its own right, Sure. This kind of just this group who has taken over Seattle, who is warring with the Scars. And it's that training. It's her dedication to be better and stronger and better and stronger so she can find Joel. That's what leads her to become just, that's why she's so strong. That's why she's so, single-minded. And that's when, she's done with Owen. And you can see that disconnect, that divide that happens between them. Wordlessly tell you exactly what is happening with the characters.
Yeah.
Brilliant writing. Very well done.
Do you know who plays Abby? I
no.
have no idea.
I didn't look it up.
Tiny little woman.
Really?
Laura Bailey. Do you know Laura Bailey?
Rings a bell.
She's on. I mean, she's a pretty prominent voice actor, but I know her best from Critical Role. I'll show you.
Oh, no way!
Yeah, just this little bitty lady. What an awesome performance. Thank you.
Incredible.
On our Twitter profile yesterday, I reached out and said thank you to everyone because I can't stop thinking about it. Really,
it's a well-written
I
game.
watched a review today that was even like negative towards the game, but once you start bringing up those characters, I'm still incredibly affected. I really invested myself in those characters, just like I did with Tazi earlier in the year. Last month we played, or really just 2 weeks ago now, we played Amnesia Rebirth. I was so incredibly invested in Tazi, and much more so in both Abby and Ellie.
Yeah,
and you're intended to have hugely contrasting feelings towards both of those characters.
Yeah.
Or rather, the same feelings that compete with each other. Because you have the same feelings towards both characters, they're not compatible. And I found it to be incredibly effective, and I can't get over it. Everyone who acted in this game,
wow,
was incredible.
Yeah, wow.
I love it.
Just wow. Even in the characters that I think are, one-dimensional, the voice acting is
Troy Baker.
amazing. Oh, dude.
Oh, my God. When he So there's
when he opens his mouth and says
when
words.
he opens his mouth, I'm already getting a little choked up here. So there's 4 times in particular. The first one was when he shared the guitar for the first time with Ellie and started singing
and
her
he's
that
like he's
song.
a little insecure about it.
Oh my god!
Yeah, Troy Baker is a legend. He really is.
He's so good.
But real quick, because we're gonna go into Ellie territory real fast. We start talking about Joel.
We are.
Abby has a couple flashbacks like that are really good and kind of lead into what happens with Joel when she kills Joel finally. But the main thing that gets her back is Owen. So Owen has gone AWOL, and they're like, nope, not worth it. We need to do a final massive raid on the Scars. Just end them once and for all. This is Isaac saying this. He's the leader of the Wolves, the WLF. And Abby decides to go AWOL as well, to find Owen, though, to bring him back and show that, look, he's a good guy, because they currently believe that Owen killed Danny, another character. And she finds Owen. It turns out he did kill him, because Danny tried in self-defense, because Owen decided he's done killing Scars. He sees this old man who is just ready to die. It's a beautiful moment where he's explaining this to Abby. So I saw this old man, and he was just ready to die. And he realized he wanted that. He wanted to live a good, full life, but then he didn't want to die in battle like that old man. He wanted to just be ready and to just go. And he's trying to communicate that with Abby, and she's just not getting it. She's like, no, come back. We need you. We need you to fight. We need you to be okay with the WLF. Which leads into sex, of course, because that's what happens all the time in my life. I'll tell you that right now.
I forget who it was, but mentioned just like the rapid escalation of that scene. That's got to be like the driest moment anyone has ever had during sex. That's like from 0 to, okay, we're done in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, that was intense for sure.
Goodness gracious.
But regardless, that moment when she wakes up the next morning because of what he said and because of her reinitiation of that relationship, the relationship that she cut off because she only had her eyes on Joel and the WLF, starts to go, well, okay, I'm just going to go back and help those 2 Scars. So there's these 2 Scars who have defected. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go back and help them. And she doesn't even know why, really, at first. She just gets up and does it, you know? You get to watch her character through the same relationship that showed us where she's at then. Now that relationship shows where she's at now and how she's starting to change again. And through Owen, really, again, great storytelling. It doesn't hammer you over the head with it.
What I think a lot of people are missing, I had a pretty heated debate actually at work just like 2 days ago about this game. And I was in training with someone for a new position, and a trainer had to step in after like, I don't know, it was probably 20 minutes of us going back and forth. Just someone who refuses to play this game for various reasons. And I'm trying to explain the nuances.
Trying to share the game with him.
Yeah, exactly. Share the game. In trying to explain the nuances in the character developments between Abby and Ellie, the contrasting character developments, and he just refused. And
people are passionate.
But if that is indicative of if his opinion is indicative of why other people are so ready to dismiss this game, I think one of the biggest contributing factors to that is that you're not able to recognize that everyone has faults. He was presenting arguments that are absolute, as though he's never had any variance in his sense of morality, which is not the case. And also just like forgetting that this takes place in a fictional zombie apocalypse where many of our morals as a civilized society are out the window.
Just out the window.
Yeah, they do not apply at all. But aside from that, Abby, while maybe presented immediately as the villain, is a nuanced human being who feels and evolves based on her feelings, and her actions contribute to those feelings, and she is evolving just like Abby, or just like Ellie is, just like Joel did, and just like anybody else does.
Yeah. She's changing specifically through other people and through moments from her past coming back up. And it's very well written character. Well written. I'll say it again. Yeah. And so she eventually starts to develop a bond with Lev. Levy?
Lev.
Yeah. Lev, who I always forget. But yeah, Lev, who has been ostracized because she was going to be married to an old elderly person, but she,
as is tradition in this cult.
Yeah, but she wanted to be a boy. She wanted to be a fighter, and so she shaves her head, starts going by him, and all that stuff. And of course, this religious cult, including his mother, right? Including his mother, who is like super devout. Mm-hmm. Is not on board with this, so his sister helps get him out, and they're on the run. And through the relationship between Abby and Lev, you kind of start. Abby then takes it further. She kind of is able to realize, why am I with the WLF? Like, they're just as bad as the people I'm fighting. Like, what should I be fighting for? And before she gets to that question, she has a moment where she's like, no, Lev, you're my people. Those aren't my people anymore. You're my people. And you have to start fighting the WLF, right? And then she takes it another step further and says, this is what I want. She finds hope again. She finds hope in finding something better than just this empty, why are we fighting kind of thing, And it's sure maybe a little simplistic sometimes, but it's well presented, and it's presented through a well-drawn, interesting character, and you're invested, and I like it, and that kind of leads her through the rest of her arc.
Lev and his sister are they have a couple more notes than the rest of the supporting cast, I think. Maybe it's like Owen and them, or them and Owen, I think are the more complex of the supporting characters. I really enjoyed my time with Lev, and unfortunately I don't remember her name, but his sister. I thought they were great characters, and what they pulled out of Abby, what sort of character developments that they were able to extract were pretty meaningful.
And Abby doesn't become a saint.
Absolutely
right?
Not.
No, she
my God, absolutely not. Do we want to jump right to the end?
No, let's talk about Ellie first.
Okay, let's talk about Ellie. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's good stuff, but she doesn't become a saint. The game's not trying to say, and now she's learned the lesson that all must learn to become perfect human beings.
No, once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic.
She's like, hey, she's a little bit better now. She's starting to figure it out, and that's. But the most important thing is she realizes that life and finding people who are dedicated to being alive and the little aquarium moments, she starts to realize that again, right as she comes back to find that Ellie has brutally murdered everybody that she loves.
My God.
And, that slips out of her hands. And so for a brief moment, she slips back and says, no, I'm going to kill Ellie. She took everything from me. And in the worst gameplay moment in the whole game, you have to fight Ellie. Which is so poorly communicated. I'm going to say it again. Like, in every other situation, you're able to sneak up behind someone, grab them, choke them out, or, scare them and then punch them. You have to be at a specific distance right behind Ellie and get a button prompt.
Oh, you get a button prompt?
Yeah, you get a button prompt.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
See, so it was maybe even more frustrating for me then, because I was trying to use the triangle takedown. That does not work.
No, she will immediately push you off, machete you in the side, and rip your guts out.
See, you're not even allowed to do the takedown. You're just trying to do it often enough, and she finally notices you.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually initiate the takedown animation. So I had some very few elements turned off in my UI, so I guess I didn't get that button prompt. But basically, you just do a normal melee attack.
Yeah, it has to
which
be
you're not encouraged to do.
But it
a
has
single
to be
time
behind her at a specific distance, and then the next time you have to hit her with a bottle while she's looking the exact opposite direction, and then go get her. Like it's
the
so
only reason I did that is because I had to look at a
communicated.
playthrough of the fight in the other one. Like
it's very
so
bad.
I looked at the playthrough up to a certain point. Like I was trying to avoid as many spoilers as possible, which typically I don't care about spoilers too much. But I was right there at the end. Yeah, I was right there at the end. So I heard that. Or maybe like a prompt in the game, because I had died often enough, said it's running away is often your only choice. So it's like trying to get her attention, running towards doors, waiting for some QTE to trigger, and it wasn't happening. So finally, I think I accidentally pressed the melee button. I was like, this is so dumb.
Yeah.
Why are you making me do this? But
it's the most frustrating part of the game.
Yeah, because I had like skipped through that playthrough a little bit, I saw that you had to throw a bottle. So I did. I threw a bottle. That was fine. After that, it was just that first
but
part of
it is an interesting idea, because Ellie will lay traps, and the same traps she uses against everybody else.
What?
Yeah, she'll lay like her mines down, and
she didn't do any of that for me.
Oh, she did all that.
No, she just walked around until she saw me and shot me.
Like she'll get her backpack down and craft something, and like
what?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's a cool idea. It's just executed poorly.
No, that would be cool. Much better if she were like actually doing anything. She was just walking around, and if she saw me, she would shoot me with a shotgun.
No, that didn't happen to me. But even so, it was still frustrating. Anyway, you fight Ellie. You're about to you beat her down. Dina comes in to try to save Ellie. You get Dina, obviously, because Dina's pregnant.
See, that's the point where I was like, oh my god, she's not a saint. So Ellie killed one of her friends
who was pregnant.
Ellie did not know that she was pregnant, and she was very she was destroyed over this. Really, like the guilt was so physically manifested in Abby.
It's so well performed.
It is. It's really, really good. When she finally gets back to her group, which is at this time Jesse,
Dina, and Tommy.
Jesse, Dina, and Tommy. Her and Dina have a little moment. Dina undresses her and gives her sort of like a sponge bath, and she's just shaking the whole time, and it's great. It's a really, really well acted, intimate moment, because she killed a pregnant woman. She's so afflicted by that, and
so Dina comes in.
Abby is just beating Ellie's face in, and you as the player are forced to do this, which a lot of people don't like. At this point, I had accepted that this is not me.
Yeah, I accepted that very early on. Like,
yeah,
I know this is not me. In fact, when people were reviewing online and said, "Oh," and then they make you kill the dog, and then they show you the dog later to make you feel bad about it, I'm like, I didn't feel bad about it. Like Ellie did that. Like,
yeah,
I didn't do that.
Definitely. Yeah, you should accept pretty early on. If you still haven't played it and intend to play it, this is, again, you have. Aside from just like traversing your way through the levels, you have probably zero agency in this story.
Yeah, and
it is a completely passive story.
And once you kind of realize that, that's when I kind of disengaged and said, okay, well then, Ellie did that. I didn't do that.
Correct.
We'll talk about it, I think.
But I still didn't want to see it happen. So as Abby, you are beating Ellie's face in. But the last time you saw Ellie, she was so riddled with grief over and guilt over what she had done. She was. There was this turning point for her, and you want to see that through, but the camera cuts, and now you're doing day one in Seattle again with Abby, and when those two paths converge again, and you are just beating Ellie's face in, and her eyes roll back. It's so good. It's very well acted. She's choking on her blood. You're just beating her face in, and finally Dina comes in and like tackles you off of her. But Dina's a small lady,
and she's pregnant and sick. And...
yeah, Abby, it takes her no time at all to overpower Dina, and she's like smashing Dina's face she's all but curb stomping Dina, and then she turns around and puts Dina in a chokehold and is about to slit her throat, and Abby, Ellie is finally able to sort of like choke up a couple words and says she's pregnant, and Abby looks directly at the camera and says, "Good." Yeah. Oh my god.
And it's perfect. A lot of people took issue with this, like, look how awful Abby is. Like, how can you root for this person? And the whole point of this section is she's gone through this journey of learning and growing a little bit. And the second she sees Owen and her friends all dead, she immediately regresses. Mm-hmm. Immediately. And she's back to that person. And it's Lev looking at her, reminding her, remember what you decided to fight for. Yeah. Remember what you just, and she just goes, forget it. And she says, don't let me ever see you again. Mm-hmm. And she just leaves.
And I think this is the point that I think a lot of people have a lot of contention over. Even if you've bought into the idea that she was on her own revenge narrative, but finally, like, it's that final moment that you're focusing on and that some people like can't move past. I think that's the point where you fail to realize the nuance in human beings. Like, maybe you personally have not dealt with something like addiction, but regression in your personal character development is a very real thing.
And I think it's communicated well. It's very obvious that, like, as you're breaking into this place, as Abby just immediately shoots whoever's about to run through the door, that Abby is not, that she's back to just being the old Abby. And I think it's communicated, maybe not really effectively like other moments, but I was able to pick up on it,
I think I may have interpreted that moment a little differently, where she shoots Jesse. So the final moment with Ellie has her and Jesse in a room together, hearing a scuffle outside with Tommy. Tommy had just walked out of the room, and that's where Abby captures Tommy, and Ellie and Jesse run out to confront whatever's happening. So as soon as they open the door, Jesse gets shot in the face. And then the moment progresses, and then it cuts to Abby, and you go through the next 10 hours as Abby. So when you get back to that moment, and even looking back on that moment through Ellie's perspective, I don't think that's like a super angry Abby.
It's reactionary.
It's reactionary. That's she's scared, and she's.
I know, but I think that's the problem, is that it is reactionary. Like, because think about what Joel was considered cruel for in the first game, for being immediately reactionary. I'm going to survive, done, no questions asked. The empathy is not there anymore. So because Abby is immediately reactionary, and she immediately goes right for Ellie next, like boom boom, no questions, right? She's just it's that gut reaction, this is who I am kind of thing. And it's not until Lev gives her that look that she remembers, I'm trying to be different. Like, I'm well, maybe not remembers that explicitly, that's a little bit simplistic, but she remembers, this is what I'm trying to leave behind, and it's good. I think it's great. Let's cut back to Ellie. So Ellie, her flashbacks are beautiful. So she has one with Joel that is just so powerful. Everybody points it out. It's when they go to the museum together. It's basically all the good feels from the first game.
Not just all the feels from the first game, but because the world the characters are currently in, and the fact that Ellie has not had the chance to have a childhood, how she's been brought up by Joel at this point, sort of a removed father figure. Ellie is largely, this is sort of one of the moments where, in my argument with the guy at work, like, he was not able to separate current world morality from the other one. Ellie's an adult at the age of 15. She can make her own decisions, and if she wanted to sacrifice herself, which she would have done with the Fireflies, she has the right to make that decision. And one of his arguments was that as a child, she should not have the right to make that decision.
It's supposed to be a morally complex decision.
It's a very morally complex decision.
That's
for
what
sure.
It's supposed to be.
But because where she is currently, where she's come from, this moment is incredible. And I've not felt that much in a very long time. So, the museum. The flashback starts when you're with Joel. You're controlling Ellie. But you're with Joel, and he's taking you to some surprise. And throughout this 5-minute interaction, Ellie continues to guess. And her first guess is is it a dinosaur? And then she guesses a couple more times. And then finally, he also teaches her to swim at this time. And so finally, you arrive at whatever the surprise is, and it's a dinosaur. And I immediately, I lost it, man. Because it's obviously a fake dinosaur. You can see the building in the background. It's obviously a museum. And just what a powerful moment it must be for just remembering what it's like to be a kid. What a moment this must have been. And
I love
it's so well captured.
And his dad dialogue is so good. He's like, no, I know what that one is. That's a velociraptor.
Yeah.
And she's like, actually, it's a Deinonychus. And he's like, I don't know. I watched a movie and that thing right
there. Yeah, it starts talking about Jurassic Park. She's never seen Jurassic Park, of course. And yeah, the daughter-father dialogue there is great. And, that was enough there, but oh my God, man.
It culminates in this moment where they get into it's either
the Moonlander pod. It's
it's either a replica or the real thing.
Sure, it's a replica. Let's be real.
And they get in there, and
before Ellie gets into this, which usually at a museum you're not allowed to touch, but when the world has ended, you're the only two there. Whatever. So she's looking around at this Moonlander, and she's about to climb in, and Joel's like, wait a minute, you're about to go into space.
You need your space helmet.
You need a space helmet. So there's around this circular room, there's all of the prototypes they had for the space suits. So you get to go pick out a helmet, and you do pick out a helmet, you get inside the spacesuit, and she's pressing all the buttons. She's so just in awe of all of this. And she's laying there in the cockpit with her helmet. Joel climbs in, and he pulls out of his pocket oh my God, this is too good, man. He pulls a cassette tape out of his pocket and hands it to her. I don't know how the hell he got this, but it's a recording of the countdown for the first
lunar
launch.
It's really good.
It's so good. So she puts on her Walkman, and this is the first time, I think the only time, where the game breaks away from the reality of the game and shows you I guess they do in a couple nightmare situations, but it starts to assume the role of an actual launch. The countdown happens, the cockpit shakes, you see the light, the flames coming in, and oh my God, I can't do it. What an incredible moment.
And
you just see the reaction on her face.
And then the following flashback, you start to see their relationship start to break down.
Yeah.
Because she starts to realize what he actually did at that hospital. And when she finally figures it out and confronts him, she says, you need to tell me the truth. If you tell me the truth, I'll go back to you with Jackson, with you to Jackson. And if you lie to me, I'm going to leave you forever. So he tells her the truth, and she says, we're going to go back together because I promised, but I want nothing to do with you. And so, of course, he's still being a good dad. He'll try to make sure she gets easier supply routes and stuff. And, she's sick of him interfering, and you don't really get the conclusion to that story until the very end of the game. And it's used so
until the
freaking well. So,
very end.
During the rest of this, Ellie's story is very simple, honestly, compared to Abby's, because the growth is the opposite direction. So, it's finding these people, taking them out, figuring out where Abby is. The most significant moment, besides the killing the pregnant woman, happens when she comes face to face with someone who can tell her where Abby is, and she tortures her for information, and that shakes her really badly as well. Another little interesting moment is Jesse going, hey, Tommy's over there, we need to go help him. And she says, you can go get your ass killed, I'm not going to save you. I'm gonna find Abby. It's more important. And you
she's totally lost at this point. She's like trying to justify that this is what Tommy would want.
Yeah.
That's not the case. And that's another moment where I was like, oh, she's gone.
She's gone. Yeah.
That moment got me as well.
And so let's kind of transition to the ending then, which is, obviously Abby leaves with Lev. And you find out later they go to find, the supposed Firefly regrouping place. That's what they're trying to find. Ellie has gone back to Jackson. She's on that farm that Dina was talking about getting. Dina had her baby. They're raising this child together, and they have a farm. You do little farm things. You experience an episode of PTSD. That Ellie's going through because of Joel's death, and Tommy shows up. And Tommy was shot in the back of the head, but survived, and his face is all messed up. And he says, I can't... Oh, and he got an arrow in the leg as well. So he has a limp, so he can't... So he says, Ellie, I found, where Abby is, I'm pretty sure. I can't go after her. You need to go after her. You promised. And you can see this broken man, this man who initially said, let's go back. We're done here. Unable to let go. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's the best use of Tommy in the game. And he, for anybody who doesn't know,
I don't know.
He's Joel's brother.
I really liked the moment where he convinced her to go back. I think that showed a very mature human being. But
then this moment showing that man totally gone, totally wasted
great.
And withered away.
It's definitely
so
effective.
Good. And Dina kicks him out. She says, I don't want anything to do with that. You stay away from us. We have our happy life. Mm-hmm. And Ellie's agreeing. She's like, yeah, just go away. She doesn't say it, but you can see it in her eyes. And Ellie wakes up in the middle of the night and she's cold. She starts closing some windows and she can't let go. She has to go find her and kill her. She can't let go of that bitterness that's just holding on to her. And Dina sits there and tries to convince her. And Ellie's like, I can't stay. This perfect world, the exact world Joel would have wanted for her, she's throwing away.
Yeah.
And you're like, but wait, can't you realize that? I thought you were doing this for Joel, for vengeance on Joel. And you start to put the pieces together. Maybe this isn't for that reason,
which leads us to which we'll get to in just a moment, but that's really going to affect the end of the game and the feelings that elicits, but so as Abby is, I mean, God, I keep getting them mixed up
because they both have vowel starting names.
Sure.
It's not okay.
Yeah. So
one needs to be named Abby and one needs to be named, Johannes Jackson. Just something really obviously different.
Sure. So, Ellie is...
See, there we go! You just combined them.
Yes.
Okay, no, but
Ellie is very comfortable in this place now, and she doesn't want to go. She is accepting this, but she has a flashback. And this is the moment where, because at this point, if you've been binging the game, you're absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
And I was just as exhausted.
A giant climactic moment just happened. You just fist fought with Ellie, and there was a big moment. And now you're in this epilogue, like, oh, the end of the game.
Yeah. The credits are going to roll any moment. And she has a flashback with Joel. It's it was mentioned at the very beginning of the game. You wake up the day after this, what the flashback is, and that's the dance with Dina, where Dina kisses you for the first time. And there's sort of a conflict between Joel and this older guy.
Well, this older gentleman, obviously a man of more traditional
I don't know
values.
If I would say gentleman. This older guy with very traditional values.
He says, hey, there are kids here. We don't want none of that, because Dina just kissed Ellie.
Yeah.
And Ellie gets mad and kind of starts to square up with him after he's a little bit more antagonistic about it. Mm-hmm. And Joel, immediately out of nowhere, where even was this guy? You can tell he's still the dad, and he gets right up in this guy's face. He's like, what's your problem? And he's about to beat this man into nothing. Because Joel is no saint either. He's just protective and a good dad. Mm-hmm. And he, but then Ellie gets mad at him. Just stay out of my life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
now it's at that moment where, you know, she has this conflict with Joel. So Joel just had this conflict with the other guy, and now Joel is having conflict with Ellie, who didn't need his help, and looks at him and very firmly says, "I don't need you, Joel," or like, "I don't need your help." At that moment, I thought it would have been perfect to roll the credits, because obviously given everything that just happened, well, I understand. After having now experienced the epilogue, I don't believe this. But because I was already so exhausted, I was like, oh, that's perfect. Because she had just, you know, denied Tommy this revenge. Dina has sort of like spoken sense into her, but she goes to sleep and she has this dream that would have alluded to the player, I think, effectively enough to say that she's going to go back. No, that she's still feeling guilt, because the last thing, at least to us, that we knew to that point, the last thing she said to Joel was, "I don't need you."
No, I was gonna say that she hasn't let go.
Yeah, she hasn't let go.
Yeah, that she hasn't let go.
She still feels guilt. But it goes on for another like hour and a half or 2 hours into this epilogue that is just exhausting. And to very great effect. You know, this is actually not a...
You play as Abby for just a little bit. It reveals the information about her just looking for fireflies with Lev, trying to find... She has hope, again, right? She has some... and she's grasping at straws, but there's still hope there. And then you go back to playing as Ellie after Abby and Lev get captured by just this group of slavers, it seems. I'm not exactly clear on what they are, but they seem to be slavers of some sort.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what they are.
And Ellie is able to track them down and follows, and also gets captured but is able to escape, and basically goes through and sets all the prisoners free. And finally finds Abby. So yeah, at this point in the game, it's becoming more and more clear that Ellie's drive for vengeance against Abby is not because she's trying to get vengeance on Joel. That's what she's telling herself. What's actually happening is that she blames herself for not having that time with Joel, for not making that time with this man who obviously he loved her more than anybody ever will, kind of thing, you know. And she gets Abby and Lev down from these kind of like, you know, poles that they're being, you know, hung up on, basically with their hands up high above their head. Abby is unrecognizable.
Yeah,
it even has a character hanging up with a braid.
Yeah, that
you go up to and you're like, oh, I found Abby, and it's not her, and you look around like, where is Abby? So well done. And you're like, this person I don't even recognize.
You know, Ellie is hard to recognize as well. At this point, both women are just, you see their skin peeling. They're very sunburnt and incredibly emaciated. Ellie's head is bigger than the rest of her body.
Yeah.
At this point, she's just, not even skin and bones, just bones at this point.
Like, Abby's still strong.
Obviously. She's a little bigger, but she's obviously emaciated. Yeah, like she's much thinner, like probably closer to Ellie's size before. She's much smaller than she
but was. The main thing is her face. Like, it's so thin, and her hair is all cut off, and it's intense. And so Ellie can barely pull herself up onto the bank of the sand that's required to get down to the beach. They're going to take these boats away, and Ellie's like, let's fight. I want to fight you. And Abby, in a brilliant show of how much Abby has grown in this time, says, no, I'm done with that. Like, just kill me.
There's a moment before that also. So already twice, Abby has spared Ellie's life.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even question it. Once she knows exactly why Ellie is there, there's no question. But once she's cut down, she rushes over to Lev to cut Lev down, and she looks at Abby and says, there's some boats this way. Doesn't even question it. Come with us. Yeah. She doesn't say come with us, but that's what it is.
Yeah, she's like, just let it go. Like, come on. You know?
That's 3 out of then 4 times where she is giving Ellie the chance.
And at this point in the story, there's no, like, it has become who she is now. And she doesn't even want to fight for her life with Ellie. She doesn't even want to fight for it. And it's not until Ellie like puts a knife at Lev's throat and says, "I will kill Lev."
Yeah,
if you
Lev
don't
is unconscious at this point, laying in the boat. They're about to leave, and Ellie goes to another boat. She puts her stuff in the boat, and they're about to leave.
Another boat.
Yeah, a separate boat.
Not the same boat.
They're about to leave, and Ellie's like, wait a minute, this is what I came here for. This is what we're going to do. And Abby says, absolutely not. Yeah. I'm not going to do this. And so Ellie puts a knife to Lev's throat. Lev is currently unconscious, but still alive, and says, yes, you are.
And the moment where, when Ellie's putting her stuff away in the boat, she has this 7 moment. Like, it's ripped straight. It sounds like I'm insulting the game. I'm not. It is the moment from 7 where Brad Pitt's character has the gun to the serial killer, and Morgan Freeman's like, don't kill him. It'll complete his plan. Like, don't kill him. And he has the gun to the serial killer's head, and it's kind of like leaning down a little bit in his hand's limp. He's realizing that the guy has just cut his wife's head off, right? He's having this moment, and he's trying to decide, I can't not kill him. What am I supposed to do? And there is this, just a couple frames of Gwyneth Paltrow's face flashes against the screen. And he lifts the gun. And it's just so perfect. And that's the moment that happens with Ellie. She's putting her stuff away. You can tell she's not too sure what, wow, I'm here. Like, it's actually happening. And she gets a flash of Joel's bloodied face. So in 7, it's the perfect angelic face of Gwyneth Paltrow. And in this, it's the bloodied, massacred face of Joel, right? So it's 2 different sides of emotions. But that's the moment. She's like, I'm gonna do this now. And there's this brutal fight.
Again, exhausting.
Like, yeah, and it is the end fight in Metal Gear Solid 4. Like, I have never once experienced anything that reminded me of that fight until this moment. It is in Metal Gear Solid 4, it's 2 very old men at this point. Very old. They've just gone through an extremely excruciating experience. They can barely stand. They're shooting what is essentially adrenaline into their necks at intervals throughout this fight so they can keep beating the crap out of each other. And it's it goes through every Metal Gear game. Basically all the themes start to play, and then it ends on Metal Gear Solid 4's theme, which is this extremely sad guitar piece called Old Snake. And you're just beating the crap out of each other to this song. That's the closest that I could find. Like, it immediately sparked that reminder in me. And Abby bites Ellie's fingers up, her guitar fingers, very importantly. 2 of her fingers, and her pinky and her ring finger on her left hand.
It's very important.
Very important. And, Ellie gets a little stab into her and stuff. And she finally gets the upper hand on Abby and starts drowning her. And this moment pissed a lot of people off. Mm-hmm. Because she decides to spare Abby after another little quick flash image of Joel sitting on the porch. And she lets Abby up and she says, just go, just leave. And obviously hasn't forgiven her, right? It's not this story of forgiveness, right? But she decides to let her live.
She specifically says, and I don't know how true this is, but I'm going to choose to believe it. I forget which reviewer I was watching, but she releases Abby. Abby comes out of the water, gasping for breath. And Abby's just sitting there, defeated. Literally just like sitting in the water, her shoulders hunched over. She is defeated. Or Ellie, I mean. And she doesn't say go, just leave. She says, just take him.
Yeah, just take him.
But, again, I don't know how, accurate this is, but this person's interpretation was that she is talking about Joel.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't think so because of what I interpret the next part to be. But people are mad because, like, what, you're just going to spare her? Like, you came all this way. Revenge has driven you this whole time. Like, what stopped you? And the key to understanding that moment is what the rest of the scene that she just saw that glimpse of was. Because afterwards, she goes back home, and Dina has left, taken the baby. The only thing left in the house is Ellie's stuff. Ellie made her choice.
Is it another moment that really just got me?
Yeah, and
she has literally nothing left.
Yep.
She has lost her fingers. She can't play guitar anymore. Which was
she
her
picks up her guitar, which is her like way to remember Joel for teaching her to play the guitar, and she
can't play it because I mean you're forced to play it, but she's missing 2 very important fingers. And it sounds terrible, and she can't play the guitar, and she finally leaves it. I didn't make this connection because it's been so long, but the knife, I guess that was a big deal in the first game. That was the last thing her mother gave her. So that was her last connection. Dina, her, for all intents and purposes, her wife, her life partner, has left because Ellie left. Ellie, as you said, made the decision.
Yeah.
She has nothing left. And sure, she's probably going to go back to Jackson. Maybe her and Dina will get back together. Who knows? But by the time of the credits, Ellie has nothing more than a husk of herself.
But the last flashback, this is right after, it's either right before or right after the guitar moment, is the rest of that scene that she saw when she decided not to kill Abby.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I mean, right before the game starts, basically.
Yes.
And
the night before.
Yeah, she comes up to Joel, and they have this little disagreement, and she's talking about, I just can't believe you did that. Like, I wanted my life to mean something, is exactly what she said. And he looks at her and he says, if God gave me a chance to do that again, I'd do it all over again. He said, I would kill everybody in the hospital again and save you again. Like, he is so confident that what he did was, as far as he's concerned, the right thing, the best thing, which tells Ellie that you don't need to die for your life to mean something. That is what Joel, her father figure, is communicating her. I'm going to cry right now, is you don't have to die for your life to mean something. You can make your life mean something. And the conversation ends, and she says, let's try this again. Like, let's start connecting again.
Something along the lines of, I can't forgive you right away, but I definitely like to try.
Yeah. And, and that's basically the note they left each other on, because Joel dies shortly after. Right. And that moment recontextualizes the whole ending, because the reason Ellie chose to spare Abby is not just because she had some dumb epiphany and the game writers wanted to do that, which is honestly what I see a lot of people say. The reason she chose to spare Abby is because she decided her life would mean more sparing these people and letting them go follow their hope and their dream and their life than killing them for some empty revenge, stupid, dumb plot. Like, that's what the game's communicating. And so when she walks away, having put the guitar down, having finally been able to let Joel go, able to forgive herself in some way, and she's walking away, that's not this, someone even called it nihilistic, which is incredibly incorrect. Nihilism is everything is meaningless. This is Ellie going, I've messed up so bad, but starting with sparing Abby, I'm going to go make my life mean something. It is so good. Oh my Lord.
I'm telling you, I can't get over it. 4 days past credits, and I'm still thinking about it every day.
So, all that being said, incredible story.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem that most reviewers that I've seen, who I tend to I think lend way more credence, is their inability to dissociate the way you play the game and what is happening during the gameplay from what the game's trying to communicate.
What the story is trying to communicate?
Yeah, so what the narrative is trying to communicate versus what you are playing as, the ludonarrative dissonance there, is that I can understand more. Because if that's the point of the game and that's the theme of the game, you are brutally murdering everybody. It very rarely asks you to consider that fact. You have this gameplay that is structured around this mass slaughter, and you're trying to talk about themes of, valuing life over death and growth and character development. And I think it does fit more than they'll give it credit. I think, Abby is not a good person. Even after she's grown and become a better person, she's not a good person. Ellie is not a good person. right? But then the game forcing you is where people take the issue, right? The game forcing you to commit these actions, forcing you to kill that dog, as Ellie is one of the most common examples, forcing you to beat the crap out of Ellie as Abby, right? Forcing you to do that, they say, then removes any sort of meaning from it, because now me as the player, I am not, like, there's nothing I can do. Why should I consider my actions when they're not my actions, right? Which is one of the most powerful ways to use a video game. But it doesn't bother me. It really, honestly doesn't bother me. I totally get the argument. I think it's a solid and sound argument. But because it's a narrative and because of the way Naughty Dog has made games in the past, I don't know if I'm just used to it. I don't know if it just doesn't bother me. I'm not sure. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, while I totally understand those criticisms and think those are the most valid criticisms to not like the game, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I will second that. It's the narrative that gets me, though. I can't get over this. I'm very happy that it exists. Very happy I decided to play it. I also only, decided to play it for the sake of having a more complete Game of the Year discussion. But I think it's going to be remembered quite fondly, down the road, as you mentioned.
I hope so.
Sure, some of the gameplay elements are, leave a little to be desired, but for the most part, it's pretty fun. You can tailor it to your own experience, to your own preferred play style. But I think these two characters, and the story that's being told, is intended to challenge people and does so incredibly effectively.
Yeah, I think overall it does very good job addressing its themes and the ideas that it wants to address. I would. So I guess that leads to the final question: who would you recommend this game to? Because I know a lot of these, listeners, people who are listening to this, some of them might not like the game, and I totally get that. I'm willing, especially for coming from that forced gameplay angle. I totally understand where you're coming from, and it is a difficult, dark story. It's sad. It's hard to wrestle with. I understand if you don't like the game, but there's a wider audience that may not be experiencing this because of the kind of negative feedback fans have given it. So, who would you recommend this game to?
That's difficult. I recommend it to pretty much anyone that likes Naughty Dog games. Pretty much anyone that liked the first game. But I think the people that loved the first game and refuse to play this one are fundamentally missing the point. And to those people, just like the colleague I was talking with at work, is a huge fan of the first game. And I did enjoy the characters of the first game. I've, in the past 7 years, not forgotten Joel and Ellie. I was also very invested in that story. Sure, didn't finish the game, but I'd be happy to call myself a pretty big fan of that game as well. For those folks that are refusing to play this game because of the investment they had in the first one, I think it is a worthy challenge to sort of dive into. Not a gameplay challenge. This is a pretty challenging moral sort of like exploration, or an exploration of what you consider your moral foundation to be. So I would recommend it to those people. I probably follow a lot of the same people that you do. For again, to those that are refusing to play this game, I probably listen to a lot of those people as well. And as Zach said, in terms of the gameplay and maybe how it interacts with the narrative, yeah, those are typically pretty elegantly crafted arguments.
They do a good job.
When we're talking about the narrative, though, I think there's just this wall being put up that is not really relevant to what's actually trying to be said in the game. And I would recommend
anyone who's arguing about like
playing it for yourself.
Yeah,
I don't actually is not an argument I lean back on all of the time, because there's a lot of games. You don't always have time to play anything. So when you can find a few reviewers that, their tastes pretty much line up, it's pretty easy to say,
pretty controversial, though. I think this is a totally valid time to say play it yourself. There's so many
absolutely
thoughts on both sides, and from what I've experienced, what I've played, from my personal perspective, I think anyone who is criticizing the narrative harshly, saying it's negative or mediocre, I think,
even like baby mode bullcrap.
Yeah,
like just like elementary. This is how you should feel emotionally. I think that's incorrect.
I think that I would agree. I don't believe that they have much ground to stand on, just based on what I've played and what I've experienced. And I think I could formulate a solid argument against those people. So please play it yourself. You may end up feeling the same way. Some games are just controversial. That's just how it is. You might not like a game, and everybody else might seem to love it. That's just how it goes. But I'm gonna agree with Tyler. Play it yourself. Honestly, I just want to know what you think about it. Really, that's what I want to know. I want more people to talk to about this. I want people who hate it. I want people who love it.
People who hate it but have played it themselves.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I think
because again, I probably follow a lot of those same people that have hated the game. And typically I might tend to agree with those people, but I can't. And I watched review after review wondering, am I just an idiot here? Am I a freaking simpleton for finding this to be like deep and emotionally engaging? No, I cannot find a reasonable argument that has dissuaded me in the past 4 days.
Then great. I'd rather be a simpleton, because I'm not going to compromise the way that I thought about and felt about this game just because somebody told me that I'm not supposed to like it.
Sure.
So anyway, all the passion aside, this was a very, very good game. I'm very excited to have played it. I'm very excited to hopefully revisit it one day, maybe in tandem with the first one. Maybe I can finally get through that one and finish it.
Maybe.
I recently started the remaster. Maybe if I have time, I'll go back and just put some time in there. No, we don't have time. But pipe dreams.
Yeah.
But seriously, guys, I want to know what everybody thinks about this game. This is something that games like this don't come around very often. AAA, big, controversial sequel titles, that divide so heavily. I want to know. I want more people to be engaged in this discussion. I know it's a little bit old now, but it's still this year. Like, let's talk about this game.
Honestly, I think this will be an equally landmark title as the first one was. I think
maybe
that
for different reasons, though.
For different reasons, sure, but I think the narrative is doing very different things. And as you mentioned, down the road, when people, like the next generation who has no idea what the controversy was around this game, who are coming into it fresh, maybe even just getting a rundown of the first one and jumping into this one, they're going to find these two characters to. I think they're going to get out of the game what was intended.
Cool.
And so, for that reason, I think it's going to be looked at very positively and be another landmark title.
It's good to hear, man. You got anything else?
I don't. Other than I cried a lot.
It's a great game, man.
Cried a lot this week, man. BoJack and Last of Us Part 2. I am exhausted. I'm ready for some Japanese. I'm sorry, excuse my language.
We'll bleep it.
Maybe I'll talk about that. Sort of my my aversion to a lot of Japanese games for pretty particular reasons.
Yeah, I love it.
I'll try to formulate.
We're gonna get him to play Final Fantasy VII
Final Fantasy
remake.
VII next week. Remake, yeah. So again, this year we mentioned last week, but for the rest of the year, we're just catching up on Game of the Year stuff. The podcast was started late in the year. I missed a lot of titles. We both only just got around to playing this. So doing a lot of Game of the Year catch up so we can have a full discussion. And Final Fantasy VII Remake. I do not suffer fools or foolish things very well. And
you're going to have to suffer a bit then.
Yep, exactly.
But it's honestly, and you guys will hear more of this from me, I think the gameplay can carry that thing all day.
Which I am excited to see. I am happy to be carried by the gameplay.
Yeah, I love gameplay games.
Are there skippable cutscenes?
I don't know, but maybe you should experience the game as it was intended so you can talk about it.
Well, maybe. We'll see. We'll see. I will not skip the cutscenes.
No, we'll wrap up, though. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Yes.
It was super good to have you. Again, please let us know how you feel about this game, Final Fantasy Remake, all that stuff. Discord. Just make sure to check out the Patreon to make sure you get access to that. And then, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. We love having you around.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.